Okay, happy Monday. We're going to go straight into our starting activity today, and it says here that you need to use the poem, your memory of the poem from last week, to complete the missing parts of these key lines. And this is just tying us back into an activity which was about selecting the right how, the right evidence and proof to go with the what. So we've got work blank. Okay, so work blank. We've got oh blank me please with gentle ease from work, sleep, work. Blank pounding blank of my blank. Poor neural circuits, blank and blank in work, sleep, work. In trying to make some blank of all this. You're blanked. Eternal peace and rest for me, blank, work, sleep, work, sleep. So I would say give yourself probably about 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, guys. Actually, that's far too generous. So maybe 3, 4 minutes. Now you just need to write down the missing words. You don't need to write out the whole lines or copy and complete this table. We have done this table last week. Okay, so this is just us recapping on some of the lines from the poems. And yes, right now, at the moment, I've started to do this with the webcam on. So you can see that there is a real face, a real teacher on the other side of these lessons, working with you and for you. Okay, so press pause, go through your lines. See you in a minute. Okay, so let's see the answers and what do we get? I'm just going to try and move us on. There we go. So work, sleep. Now, this is repetition. Okay. Oh, there you go. First time I use the web camera and I sneeze on screen. Yay. Okay, so work, sleep. These two words are repeated. So we've got the repetition of these two words all through the poem. They become like the chorus, the refrain. Work, sleep. Okay. Again, reminding us that our speaker in this poem is pretty much trapped in this cycle of work and sleep. That's all they do. Brilliant. And then in the next line, what was missing? Yes. Free me, please. And actually, the problem in this poem is that there's this clash between the realization that they are trapped in this work, sleep, repetitive cycle, when really all they want is freedom. They have a desire for freedom. They want to be free from this work, sleep cycle. Brilliant. And then we had these lovely 2 new vocab terms that were missing, odium and tedium. Brilliant. Odium, if you remember, meaning widespread disgust and hate. It's kind of like that moment when you end up hating yourself for doing something, and that self-disgust that sets in when you find yourself maybe doing the same habits or the same things that you shouldn't. Okay, I think there's going to be a widespread odium of people on FaceTime, Zooms, and team calls, because we're going to get really fed up with ourselves. Okay, so odium. Tedium, that repetition of the idea of something that's monotonous and boring. It comes from the idea of tedious. Brilliant. And it's work that's creating that widespread sense of odium, that disgust, and the pounding tedium of it all. Brilliant. In the next one, what was missing? Focus slightly differently here on the fizzle and pop. These lovely kind of onomatopoeic kind of word choices here, fizzle and pop. Remembering that neural circuits, the connections within the brain, and we get the fizzle and pop in work, sleep, in trying to make some sense of all this. So the speaker in this poem, the voice in this poem, is trying to make sense and reason and work out exactly why they've ended up trapped in this work, sleep cycle. And their poor brain is fizzling and popping with all the activity, trying to connect and make sense of this life. Brilliant. And then we get the problem is solved by being fired. You're fired. Very Alan Sugar there. You're fired. That lovely exclamatory moment in the poem with the exclamation mark. Okay, and the resolution doesn't feel right. It feels unsettled because they end the line with this little cleverly placed no. This no comes in on the end of the line, which means, although we think the resolution of this poem is that they have been released, they've been fired, but you almost get this little hint that actually they're still stuck. They're still stuck in that place of work, sleep. So that was our starter for today. So brilliant, guys. Straight into getting you thinking back to last week. Now, if you like a title, we can keep repeating the same title, The Importance of Theme. and using occasional subheadings to redirect us. So right now would be a brilliant time is just to pause to get today's title down, the importance of theme, and we are looking at it being the 24th of January, okay? Monday the 24th of January, the importance of theme. And really, we're still kind of in this territory of using the lessons to explore the idea of what is theme and can I identify a theme in a text. The truth is, guys, the other two bullet points here of how can theme create a bridge across time and text and how do writers contribute to the meta-narrative of human experience can't really be done until we've looked at more texts. But we want to be able to identify a theme in a text, and that's what we're working on. And we are doing it through 4 methods. Okay, so how do we identify theme in a text? Well, we remind ourselves that we're trying to identify the theme, the message, and we do this by working out what the writer wants to teach us about. So in every poem, in every story, in every piece of writing, there's a good chance we're going to find a problem, a conflict, something that's creating tension, opposition, argument, debate, and a resolution, that kind of settled outcome, that problem being solved in some way. So if we can find out what the problem is and what the solution is, we're really being directed to the theme, okay? And that's the first stage, but there's more to it than that, because really there's the how. So how are they focusing us on it, on the theme? How do we know what the problem is? How do we know what the resolution is in any piece of writing? Now, this is where we're at. This is what we started to look at last week. This is what we're going to build on today. Okay, so we are looking at the what and the how working together in our poem. Brilliant. Number 3, though, why are they doing it? So what is the intention, the purpose? Why are they focusing us on this particular problem and its solution? And then we test that idea against other texts. Now, this reminds us of the key components of a theme. A theme is, what does the writer want to teach us about? But it has to be more than one word. It cannot be unique to one text. It has to have that kind of connection across text. It's part of a bigger meta-narrative, a bigger story that a series of texts are telling us. Okay? And we're then looking at how language can be used to focus us on theme. Okay, guys? Brilliant. So this is our poem. Now, each lesson, I'm reading the poem at the start because it grounds us and reminds us that although we're zooming in on different bits of the poem, there is a bigger poem, a bigger, a complete unit of work that we're looking at. So, Work, Sleep by Mark R. Slaughter. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work. Free me, please, with gentle ease from work, sleep, work, sleep, work. This odium, pounding tedium of my work, sleep, work, sleep, work. Just whisk me off to lands afar from work, sleep, work, sleep, work. That grinding train of rhythmic pain called work, sleep, work, sleep, work. Poor neural circuits fizzle and pop in work, sleep, work, sleep, work in trying to make some sense of all this. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work. But hark, I see a golden gleam, a saving spirit of hope. You're fired, he screams. What news to bear this wondrous hangman's rope? So now I'm free, released from all this. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work. Eternal peace and rest for me. No. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work. I love this poem. Brilliant. Okay. So we have been looking at this poem on different levels, and we are really looking at this poem. This is the 3rd lesson looking at it, because sometimes when you start using poetry, the temptation is, because poems are small, yeah, 1 lesson, let's move on. But we're using this first poem just to unpack some of the different ways. And we're going to be thinking today about a language checkpoint that a way into a poem. How is a poem conveying a theme? Is this little word method. Now, in a minute, I am going to ask you to pause and write a definition down, but I just want you to listen for a minute. So, methods. So, a writer can draw upon or use a variety of methods to help them draw attention to the key ideas and themes in a piece of writing. Now, we've looked last lesson at words, finding the words that writers are using. But the truth is that words can be put together in such a way that they become a method. So a method then is a particular technique or device, a particular manipulation of words. So a method is putting words together in such a way that we create a technique or device that's used to make the idea memorable and arresting. I love those two words, memorable and arresting. In other words, memorable to get our attention and arresting to get our attention, and memorable to help us remember what is significant. So we may never now forget that this poem, work, sleep, because the writer is using a very particular technique, a very particular device there, that purposeful, deliberate repetition. Okay, so techniques and devices. So a method is a particular technique or device used to make the idea memorable and arresting. In other words, to get our attention and help us remember what's significant. An arresting technique is a bit like a slap in the face moment. It's like, whoa, okay, that I get that, I see that, I'm going to look at that because that's what the writer wants me to look at. So methods can include similes, metaphors, personification, repetition, alliteration. And actually, this is just the beginning of a very long list of methods, of practice, deliberate ways of organizing words into a particular technique or device that's going to make them memorable and arresting. Now, some of these will be familiar, some of these will be new, and we're not going to look at all of them today. We're just going to zoom in on metaphors, okay? But we're recognizing that a method is the organization of words and phrases to create a particular technique or device that's used to make a memorable idea, an arresting idea. So what I would like you to do now is feel free, pause the screen. I would like you not to write down all of this, but to write down the definition that begins a method is, okay? A particular technique or device, just so you've got a record of that key term moving forward, that a method is a particular technique or device used to make the idea memorable and arresting. Okay, so once you've done that, we're actually going to zoom in today and look at similes and metaphors. Okay, so metaphors and similes. Now we're starting here because these are, in one way, the most common method that we see writers use in all types of writing. Journalists, speechwriters, poets, authors. Metaphors and similes are the kind of one of the most frequently used methods, okay, that writers use. Now, metaphors and similes are methods that are used in all types of writing to help create a bridge between a familiar and an unfamiliar idea. The writer is creating an imaginative link between two things. Okay, so metaphors and similes almost work like equations. You've got X and Y, and what is the link between the two things? But in particular, we're going to look then at the language of metaphors. And actually, I said X and Y there like an equation, but they actually have proper names that we can use. The tenor and the vehicle. Now, in a metaphor or a simile, there is the thing that you want to try and describe to your audience. Now, this is called the tenor. This is the X part of the equation. Okay, so if I want to describe to you how fast I am, I'm going to use a really bad one, by the way. I want to describe my speed. That's the tenor, that's the X. How fast is Miss Deutsch? Let's think. I will then create the part two, the imaginative idea to compare it with. And this is going to help you understand, your audience understand it. This is the made up bit. Now, this is where we're creating a link between a familiar and an unfamiliar idea. All of you are unfamiliar with how fast I run. You've never seen it on purpose. I've never once done a sports day. I've deliberately concealed my running. But I can create a link between the unfamiliar image of me running with a familiar idea. So I might say, Miss Deutsch is a tortoise on the field. In other words, you can immediately say, I've never seen Miss Deutsch running. That's the tenor. That's the thing I want you to begin to imagine. And as soon as I compare myself and say, I am a tortoise, you already know certain characteristics that tortoises have. They are slow. They are steady. They do get there in the end, but it's done at a very deliberate, slow pace. You would not be betting on the tortoise in a race, would you? So The vehicle, your imagination can connect to the familiar characteristics of a tortoise. Oh yeah, a tortoise is slow, steady, it plods along. Ah, okay. So now I get it. Now I can begin to imagine that Miss Deutsch is a tortoise when she runs. So she's slow, deliberate, and steady. So the next thing we need to write down, okay, is just these two words, tenor and vehicle. That a tenor is the thing you want to describe, and the vehicle is the imaginative idea you compare it with. Now, just if you want, you can pause or you can continue to write that down as I talk to you, okay? So the truth is, our choices as writers, right? When a writer is deciding which metaphor, which simile to use, the thing I want to describe in the vehicle I'm going to use. Now, I can be successful or I can be unsuccessful. I could create a metaphor and it fails because nobody knows anything about it. So if I had said, rather than a tortoise, which is a common idea that we can all connect to, that Miss Deutsch is a sloth, that might be a harder image because some of you might not understand or know what a sloth is. You might be more familiar with a tortoise. But actually, because of advertising, sloths are equally recognizable now as incredibly slow creatures. Now, I'm just trying to think if I can imagine anything else that's really slow that you might never have heard of before. And my imagination doesn't have anything to draw upon. And this is what happens with similes and metaphors. We're drawing upon our own imaginative resource bank. In my imagination, what can I create links to that other people are going to understand? So sometimes in a poem, metaphors and similes are really obvious to see and to understand because we get the immediate imaginative connection. I understand what a tortoise is immediately. Sometimes we see a connection to something and it might be as unfamiliar or not something we know too much about. So we recognize that there are the metaphors and similes that make us work hard and the metaphors and similes that are immediate. I get that immediately. Now, the last little warning before we look at this in practice, I would just say, is that sometimes metaphors and similes also get overused. Miss Deutsch is as fast as a cheetah. How many times have we seen that metaphor? Yeah, or simile, sorry, describing something like a cheetah. So some similes are sadly overused and therefore lose their power. So it's really important when we're thinking about similes and metaphors that as writers, we try to be creative, but not exclusive. We want to be creative and imaginative, but we don't want to exclude our reader because they've got no idea what the thing is that we're likening it to. Anyway, we're going to look at it in practice in our poem. Are you ready? So we know now that the tenor and the vehicle are the two parts of metaphors and similes and the proper names that they have. So we now know that part one, the thing you want to try and describe to your audience is called the tenor, RX, and that the imaginative idea that we want to use to help our audience understand and connect with it is called the vehicle. So now we're going to look at an example that uses a metaphor from the poem. Are you ready? The grinding train of rhythmic pain called work, sleep, work, sleep. Now, I do love this line, and it's the more I work on this poem with you guys, the more I love this poem. I think it's really cool. So we've got this really powerful image. Now, we already know from last lesson that this guy, the writer, the voice in this poem, feels trapped. Yeah, feels that work, sleep, repetitive, rhythmic cycle is a trap that they cannot escape. And now they bring it to life. They give an extra layer of imaginative description by using this metaphor. Okay, that grinding train of rhythmic pain called work, sleep, work, sleep, work. So we know the work, sleep, work, sleep, work is almost like this refrain, this repetition all through the poem. Here, our writer is helping us to anchor, to really understand how bad it feels to be caught in this work, sleep cycle by using our metaphor, grinding train of rhythmic pain. Now, we're going to look at this together, and I'm going to ask you to do some writing in a minute around this. But I just want to clarify a few things before we move on. Now, last lesson, a little picture of a train, okay? That when we start to unpack metaphors, they should create a visual picture. We should be able to see the object. If we can't, magic of Google, Google it. Google an image of a train. Google an image of whatever, a tortoise, whatever the writer has given you. Okay, because it is about creating imagination. So there's my train on a track. So what else do I need to just clarify before we can start to unpack this metaphor? Let's have a little look. So sometimes we need to just check in with vocab. Now, grinding train of rhythmic pain. So in this poem, the writer is using a metaphor to create a connection between two things. Okay, the train and pain. Now, to help us when we think about the train and pain in a minute, I just want to clarify this vocab. So a grinding, when we grind, it's kind of like wearing away, it's eroding. So we're going to think about how a train can wear away and can be eroding in a minute. Okay, and we've also got the rhythmic pain. Okay, so the idea of something that's rhythmic, like a drum beat, like a heartbeat, like dudum, dudum. So in this purple metaphor, okay, we have got the vehicle. The imaginative idea is that pain is being described as if it is a train. Okay, so the pain and the train, and then both of those ideas are coming together and being linked to the idea of work and sleep. We'll do that together in a minute. So what I want you to do is I just want you to copy and complete this table. Okay, now the only big disclaimer is I don't want you to write these questions down. We're going to answer those together in a minute. So what I just want you to do is into your books is to copy and complete this table, but you'll see both the train and the pain are. So we've got some ideas to fill in there together in a minute. And we're going to turn these questions into answers. Okay, so give yourself a minute to copy and complete this table, and then we will come back together. Okay? Okay, so I've just made my screen a little bit smaller because I want you to be able to see me editing in this box, okay? So I want us to do this bit together. So we've got the imaginative idea, okay, and the thing that's being described. So the grinding train of rhythmic pain. So pain, our writer is trying to help us understand what pain is like, and this is the pain caused by his life of work, sleep. So to help us understand pain, he says it is a grinding train. So we have to start looking now at the separate elements of the metaphor, and then we bring them together. So guys, sometimes I would say if I was doing this in class, and my year nines might remember this, is mustn't pause, mustn't hesitate. Write down as many associations as you can with the idea of a train. And in particular, bearing in mind that grinding means that wearing, repetitive, erosive kind of train. But some questions to help us think. So what does a train, how does a train move? What does it do? What's it like? What's it for? So we're going to try and think about a train in as many details as possible. Now, the other thing you can do is just, mustn't pause, mustn't hesitate. What do you associate with the idea or the image of a train? So some of these ideas we will keep, some we will get rid of. But at this moment, we're just going to trust our own imaginations to give us some ideas to work with, okay? So let's have a little look then. So I would say if you want to do this independently and you don't want to do it with me, you can pause me now. You could give yourself 1 minute to write down as many words or phrases that you associate with a train, or you can work with me. Okay, so I've got 10, I've got a minute, I'm looking down there, I've got a minute to try and come up with any ideas. So what is a train? So a train is transport, carries things from A to B. It is, what is a train? Mustn't pause, mustn't hesitate, Miss Doidge, come on. So transport carries things from A to B. So it's on a track. It can only go one way, I think. Heavy, difficult to maneuver. Ooh, look, is that gonna let me do? Now by difficult to maneuver, I think like when you think about how like some cars move, they're like really quick and they can be agile. A train isn't. So it's a transport, carries things from A to B. It's on a track. It only goes one way. It's heavy. It's difficult to maneuver. It's powerful. Okay, that's my minute up. So I've got all these ideas. Now, if your ideas are different, that doesn't make you right or wrong. I actually had a bit of a brain melt there, so I didn't get the kind of flow that I was thinking. But I've got then, so this is what I associate with the train. Now I'm going across the table. So now I'm thinking about rhythmic pain. So which in this box transport, carrying things from A to B on a track only goes one way. It's heavy, it's difficult to maneuver, it's powerful, could also be a shared characteristic of pain. Now, so is pain a form of transport? No, so I can't use that one. So I'm just going to put a line through that, because although that's an idea that I could use, okay, if I was just talking about a train, actually in terms of pain isn't transport. Or is it? Transport carries things from A to B. Now we could say that pain does carry things. Now pain is on a track. It only goes one way. It's heavy. It's difficult to maneuver. It's powerful. So I'm just kind of thinking, so okay, so pain can be powerful. So I could keep that one. Okay. Pain can make life difficult. Okay, it can make life difficult. You can get like a heavy, dull pain. So what I've done here is I've looked at my associations and I thought, well, transport's got nothing to do with pain, but maybe heavy, difficult, powerful could be. Okay, now pain wears away actually as well. So I could say, I just want to add in now, looking at the bigger things, you know, wearing, erosive. And actually as well then, and this is how we start to look across, we could say now actually rhythmic pain. So that like a drum beat, like a heartbeat. Now there is something about a train, like the rhythmic quality of a train. So both are quite like rhythmical. Okay, so I've got my words in yellow. And remember how we got there? We did all my word association, then we got rid of the ones that couldn't be linked to pain as well. So both the train and the pain are, okay, heavy, difficult to, now maneuver means to move, so we could just say difficult to carry and can be powerfully wearing and erosive. And what we've done there is a very kind of focused discussion of that metaphor. Not going to let me make it large, but we have made that metaphor. We've thought really hard about that metaphor in that journey. Okay, so the last thing is when we go from thinking hard, we have to do the last stage, which is just to turn those thoughts into writing. Okay, so we've got our notes, we've got our ideas, and now we're just going to turn them into sentences. Now on the next page, okay, that grinding train of rhythmic pain called work, sleep. So we're looking at our metaphor. Now trains, we could say once you're on a train, you can't get off. Now I'm moving on from it. More ideas are coming to me. Once you're on, you can't get off. You have to wait until scheduled stops. There's no just getting off when you want. You are tied into the journey. See, that's a really good thing about pain, isn't it? You can't make the pain stop. I might use that in a minute. This is what happens. Your ideas start to go. So connecting the what and the how. Now this is our last bit for today, and then you have to go and do your quiz online. So pain is being presented like a grinding train because both. Okay, so let's just have a little look, because I'm doing, sorry guys. So we've got that first sentence stem. Now pain is being presented like a grinding train because both. So when we write about metaphors, we always want to talk about both the tenor and the vehicle working together, the connection between the two. If rhythmic pain is a grinding train, then the reader can begin to imagine that work is. The image of work as a train of pain suggests that. And then in particular, the word is significant because one associates it with, which means it conveys. Now, guys, I'm just going to talk to you about some ideas that you could use to complete this, but I'm not going to write any. I want you to listen, and then you are going to record your answers based on what I say. Terrible, isn't it? I'm not doing the writing for you. Imagine. But we've got the completed table before. So we could say pain is being presented like a grinding train because both convey an image of something that is powerful and heavy and difficult to deal with. And I actually like the new ideas I was getting. So pain is presented like a grinding train because both pain in a train as something powerful that you cannot stop. Once the journey on a train begins, there are scheduled stops. Once pain begins, it is impossible to stop it, or it's not easy to stop it. You have to wait till the scheduled stop. Pain is being presented like a grinding train because both are difficult and both are heavy and both are taking you on a journey that you have little control over. Would be a nice one. Okay, so that's going to give you that first sentence. If rhythmic pain is a grinding train, then the reader can begin to imagine that work is. Now, this is why it's an extension. We've looked at the metaphor and now we're linking it back to the bigger theme of work. Okay? So if rhythmic pain is a grinding train, then the reader can begin to imagine that work is difficult, something that is powerfully, that creates a powerful momentum that you cannot get off, that you cannot stop. That work is a journey that you end up being a part of that you don't really want to. If rhythmic pain is a grinding train, then the reader can begin to imagine that work is wearing you down, that work is something erosive like pain that you cannot stop, that it's a rhythmic pain, that it has a steady drumbeat, heartbeat that you cannot prevent. Okay, so the image of work as a train of pain suggests that you are on a journey that you cannot stop. We did that one. In particular, the word. Now for this bit, you can choose rhythmic, pain, grinding, or train. You've got a choice of 4 here, so you can take this final bit of the sentence stem in your own direction. So we could say, in particular, the word rhythmic is significant because one associates it with a steady drumbeat, a steady heartbeat, which means it conveys the idea that this cannot be stopped, that work cannot be stopped, that the pain of work is steady and ongoing. Okay, we could say in particular the word grinding is significant because one associates it with something erosive in the wearing down of something, which means it conveys the idea that work has momentum and takes you on a journey that wears you down, that you cannot stop. Okay, guys, now you are going to just copy and complete your sentence statements, and then there is a quiz on Teams that your teachers will set that it's important that you do. Thank you for listening. Bye.